growing up, I remember watching movies like David Cronenberg's The Fly and John Carpenter's The Thing. These films were not what you would call totally true to the source material. The first Fly movie was more of a mystery than a body horror movie. And the remake to The Thing from Another World, renamed plainly The Thing, took many of the original ideas and morphed them into a horror and psychological thriller. Both took an intellectual property and told their own story. Both would later attain cult classic status throughout the years. I lived in a time when remakes were actually great, and I often wondered why more of my favorites didn't get a fresh update with cutting-edge effects. Well, be careful what you wish for, I guess, because Hollywood took this idea and introduced it to the local crack dealer. Lately, we've gotten turds like The Crow, Flatliners, and Nightmare on Elm Street. A few years ago, Disney was riding high, acquiring Marvel, Lucasfilms, and Pixar. The House of Mouse seemed unstoppable, churning out hit after billion-dollar hit. But then something strange happened on the way to the bank. Movements around the world began metastasizing within its ranks. Third wave feminism, the feminism that doesn't want equality but superiority over men, the Me Too movement, and DEI initiatives, which began from a noble place, started to change. They call it the iron law of oligarchy, which states all forms of organizations, regardless of how democratic they may be at the start, will eventually and inevitably develop oligarchic tendencies. These movements went unchecked and left their echo chambers and now had the ear of the corporations everywhere. Disney would infuse films and properties with these virtues until, as viruses do, kill their host. The latest shit show of a film I'm speaking of is of course Snow White, and it starts the absolutely insufferable Rachel Zegler in the titular role. I watched Snow White with my family when I was young. Yeah, it wasn't my cup of tea, but I remember people just loving the film. It birthed the Disney studios, and in a way, it's ironic that it may be their downfall. So normally, I wouldn't care too much about this latest Disney remake, except for the fact that the controversy around it has reached epic levels, and who doesn't love a good dumpster fire? Especially when it's at the expense of the arrogant, self-absorbed social warriors at Disney. It began a few years ago at the height of the social activism that had gripped Hollywood. They had all the pieces in place. 7 new, diverse, magical short people, a script for the modern audience, and their champion for virtue signaling, Rachel Zegler.
I really don't remember you being this opinionated.
But trouble started when images leaked showing the diverse group of magical short people started popping up in the media, and Zegler began to promote the film. She would go on to give red carpet interviews where she blasted the original and pushed her controversial feminist agenda. She proudly proclaimed that the original prince was a stalker, that it wouldn't be a love story like the original, since those ideas were outdated, that the prince may altogether be cut out of the film, because it's Hollywood, baby. Then fans began to really worry, and many pushed back at her lack of reverence for the beloved classic. Disney would have to do some damage control. They quickly decided to polish the turd they had on their hands by firing the diverse magical short people at the behest of Peter Dinklage in exchange for CGI dwarfs, reshooting some of the film, and have Zegler go on an apology tour. The crisis seemed averted for the time being. But then the 2024 elections happened, and the lead character decided she needed a fresh new controversy. She took to social media and posted unhinged and inflammatory words, wishing that Trump supporters and Trump himself would never know peace as long as they lived. Because
the people need some kindness.
As well as other mean-spirited sentiments, only to apologize later and retract her statements. But the damage had been done, and there was no turning back. Just a few days ago, the latest trailer hit the internet, and moviegoers had had enough of this spoiled, entitled brat. Within 48 hours, the trailer has been downvoted into oblivion, with only 23,000 upvotes and 500,000 downvotes. I've personally never seen anything like this. This is probably the most important film in the history of Disney, and they entrusted it to an impulsive girl who seemed like she had an improper upbringing or has just been seduced by the prevailing zeitgeist of her industry. They truly created a monster in her, and as a result, they're gonna pay dearly at the box office. What the hell were they thinking? I guess they were drunk on their own bullshit and honestly thought that this is what the world wanted. Or maybe they felt that if they pushed enough movies like this, the audience would accept this flawed ideology. Either way, it may be a bigger disaster than any of the woke era films and may have to force Disney to put the brakes on this new crop of agenda-driven garbage. I really hope Hollywood got the message on November 5th and realized that mainstream America is done with identity politics in their entertainment. Well, let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and as always, keep watching movies.